Okay, thanks everybody for joining us today on another one of our chats. Today, we're going to discuss what is actually one of my favorite case study from one of our past clients. So the past client is Dunbar or DNBR.to, and it's a little bit unique of a product. It's an app, and it's like it's an event planning tool that doesn't require the user to have any kind of account. So you don't need a Google account, you don't need a Facebook account. It's totally open to anyone to use. And it basically just kind of it's like this nice front end for sending out this invitation to an event like, hey, let's meet up for dinner, let's go to this party, let's go to this music event, what have you, and then you can kind of like manage all of your invitations. And we work with them for about a summer, and what I really liked about this is our testing approach is really like very, very iterative and data driven. But what I don't think that we get to talk about too much is really kind of like the creative side of things. And, Calvin's here with us today because he did most of the creative work here. And so, just wanted to take a minute to kind of talk through where things went, kind of Calvin's and I's thought process on the direction to take the creative, and kind of how we went and measured success the whole way through. So, we wrote a blog post on this a little bit ago, and, it's just something that I think we kind of talked through a little bit. So, yeah, I guess where we might want to start is, so what you're seeing that I'm sharing right here is the original creative that we started with. So he had the folks over at Dunbar had some creative work done, and so we were kind of working with the message to say like, hey, here's what the app is, here's what it does, here is why you might use it. The Dunbar brand is definitely like, it's based off of Robin Dunbar, who he's known for creating the Dunbar's number, which is that kind of social phenomenon of, I can't remember, is it 150 people that you can maintain a relationship with? Something like that, right, Calvin?
Yeah, something along those lines. 150
Yeah.
or so.
Anyways, so this is sort of it's an event planning app, but what we'll kind of find out later is sort of like a relationship management tool. So the Dunbar brand, that really fits. And so like the look and feel of it was supposed to be kind of friendly, inviting. Sean is the founder of Dunbar, and that's kind of how I would describe him too. One of the most outgoing and wanting to connect with and meet people that I've ever met. So obviously, like, he and I kind of got along quite a bit, and so this was sort of his initial take. And I can't remember who he worked with, but yeah, Calvin, how do you remember how you kind of felt about the original set of creatives that Sean started us off with?
Yeah, I felt like they lacked a little bit of like human element. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of just like something that was pulled from the website, like a graphic that they used for the website. It wasn't intentionally built for an ad. I mean, there is like it's kind of like a almost instructional, like, okay, well, this is what it would look like in a text message, and you can like add it to a
Mm-hmm.
specific calendar. But I feel like it didn't really like communicate um the end result as well.
Yeah. Or like it didn't really, I think for me, the thing that seemed missing was like the feel of, right. So if we're looking at this creative here, it says, lowest friction event planning tool. And, you've got like this person that's like kind of pointing you towards like the calendar kind of things. Like, hey, this is going to help you organize events with your calendar. But it's sort of like, but why? Right? Like, what is the end? How is the user going to feel about it? I think that's kind of missing. So it's sort of like telling people, hey, this is going to help you with your calendar, but like, why do I need help with my calendar is sort of the question that doesn't quite answer, right?
Yeah, the emotional aspect, it's also one person. I feel like there's no groups of people or
Yep.
anything. So I don't think it really communicates the gathering with many people kind of aspect that
Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
advertising.
absolutely. Yeah. And also, I think it's just some tactical little things like the copy on here, like add to Google Outlook or Apple Calendar, like that's really small. And
Yeah.
so within the context of somebody scrolling through like their social feed, like the chances of them reading that are pretty low. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's better ways to kind of communicate like, hey, this is an app, this is what it does, that we were kind of missing on this kind of initial batch of creative. So we kind of saw that. So, as the kind of blog article goes, like, the click-through rate was sort of one of the biggest indicators that we were looking at in terms of like the ad performance and whether or not we were communicating well. So that is, kind of how we were measuring success and kind of how we decided to change the communication style. So this is like our next iteration. So I think what we were trying to get to here is the original creative with like the little iconography of like the calendar and the person. It didn't communicate that this is a mobile app, right? Or one of the things is like, hey, you can just text this invite. So
Yeah.
this was your idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I took the higher click-through rate copy from the two that we originally tested, which
Mm-hmm.
was the simplest way to plan events, and then I iterated another one on top of that with the invite. Oh, sorry. I iterated on that and did the invite anyone can text to see between those two which would resonate better. And I try to incorporate the aspect of someone texting their friends so you can kind of
Right.
already feel that. The text is a little bit small still now that I look at it, but I think it's still communicated a little bit better, that social aspect of inviting someone to an event of any kind.
Yeah, yeah. So like the copy there, the invite anyone can text, that's sort of like we're showing the value proposition of the product, which because like there's a bunch of other competing products. There's like Partiful, there's like Facebook events, there's like I mean just regular old like Google Calendar things. But
Eventbrite.
yeah, exactly. Eventbrite, all of these sorts of things. But the irritating thing with those is like, oh, you want to send one invite out, and I've done this personally, and it's like, God, this person doesn't have a Facebook invite. So if they RSVP and they like engage with it, it becomes difficult to manage. So that's kind of the unique value proposition of Dunbar. And, the invite anyone can text, I feel like communicates that fairly well, or at least better than the previous iterations.
And I kind of wanted to show how it was actually going to look because the invite
Yep.
also in the preview it shows what kind of event that they're inviting you to. So you see here it says Labor Day barbecue. That's all available within like the media that previews in the text message.
Yeah, yeah,
So I kind
absolutely.
of wanted to
So
show that.
yeah, what you can kind of see here is like we kept the primary copy on the ad the same. Actually, I think all of the headlines and descriptions were the same, and then the only thing that we changed was basically the text in the description. So compared, I guess this is the A variant and the B variant, but those aren't much different. But compared to the previous iteration, it's pretty significantly different in terms of creative. And so the thing, we kind of knew we were going in the right direction because click through rate almost doubled, right? So I know what this thing is like. Okay, I'm gonna engage with it. So I think that was a pretty big win off of our first iteration. Let's see. I think the next one we got a little bit sidetracked with this because we were trying to test, the different value propositions. And so this creative kind of says like, hey, it doesn't matter like which calendar app that you use, this will work with anyone. And we just found out that didn't seem to engage as well. So, the click-through rate was, I think, what is the math on that? Like 20% weaker compared to this original one. So we kind of knew like we wanted to try a couple of different directions. We found like, that's kind of a fork of the development that we didn't want to chase down any further. So a little bit of a sidetrack here because we wanted to make sure that, we were investigating as many different value propositions as we were hoping to. I think this next one, this is really where things changed a lot and that we got really like a lot of great performance changes out of. And so, the core value prop, or I guess the core creative message didn't change much. So we're still showing the phone, we're showing this is an app, but, adding in some stock art on the back end of it, I think it just did wonders. So yeah, Calvin, do you want to kind of talk us through what you were thinking when we came up with these variants?
Yeah, I feel like with the graphics, it did communicate what the purpose of the app is and the value
Right.
proposition, but I feel like it was missing the emotional aspect of things, really bringing in and allowing people to see themselves using the app and kind of seeing the end result. In this case, like, people gathering for a picnic, I'm having a show. I'd like to invite my friends and have an event where I can kind of track all the invites and see who's interested in going and who I've already invited. And then you see that here, we're a dinner gathering. So
Yeah, yeah,
I try to
absolutely.
think of like a variety of different situations where someone might want to use this app and it would be helpful with managing their guest list. And I think it really worked because I think people can see themselves using the app. And it's like,
Yeah.
people can insert themselves into these situations and it just makes sense when
Yeah, yeah. I was actually recently having a conversation with one of my kind of branding and graphic designer friends, and they were like, one of the things that they were talking about is that the customer should be able to see themselves as like the hero of uh, the the event. And in this case, you can kind of see like, okay, if I use Dunbar, like I'm going to be the cool, outgoing person that's organized and has my together and like is organizing my friends, and it's going to feel good when everyone goes out and has a good time together at fill in the blank event. Right?
yeah. So I think focusing on that, the feeling of that end result that people would love, because yeah, I think when people can really see themselves um with that, yeah, as the hero, I guess it works out. Because I just thought about like all the times where like you invite someone and people forget, or you orally
Yeah,
invite
totally.
someone, then your event starts and there's no one there, um.
Right, right, right. That's kind of the thing
We
that you want
didn't
to
test that negative
avoid.
angle, but I think at least really highlighting that the positive outcome of having your invites, properly managed and people can, have the proper reminders to even remember to go.
Right, right,
Because
right.
everyone has busy lives and everything. So I think the fact that, we have the fact that we're able to communicate that, it's easy to text and for people to keep track of the event on their calendar. I think that's why it was working so well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To your point, conversely, like I've been thinking about in elementary school or something like that. It's like the worst possible thing that could happen is you invite a bunch of people to your birthday party and nobody shows up, right? Like that's
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
kind of the nightmare that we're trying to avoid. And I'd be really curious if we were to do this again, if we were to kind of like test that negative messaging. I mean, it feels a little off brand for Dunbar because it's supposed to be kind of friendly and that sort of, leaves the customer with a bad feeling. So I'm not sure how that would work out, but I would, that's something that I would just be curious
Yeah.
about
I
testing in
feel
the
like it
future.
would work if like we also introduced the positive. So like that's the pain point, but then there's also the solution
Mm-hmm.
and the end
Yep,
result
yep.
that you can avoid having that painful outcome if you use this. So I think
Right, right, right.
if they were ever to explore a video ad, I think that would work really well. In a
Right, right, right.
stack.
Sort of like, hey, there's somebody, putting together a party and like nobody's there yet. And so, the Dunbar thing happens. And then everybody shows up and he's happy, like something like
Yeah,
that.
there's definitely a lot of things you can do. Like
Yeah.
with creative, I think the expectations versus reality, or like if you did this, you'll have this out A versus B. Where okay, if you just told your friend about it, you'd have this outcome. Versus if you texted through Dunbar, you'd have this outcome.
Yep, yep, yep.
But
Yeah.
we I think with this testing method, we were able to still achieve something really good. But obviously, if we continued working with them longer, we probably would have explored other avenues. But yeah, this was a great outcome from the testing that we did do.
Yeah. And so I think from a KPI perspective, I think this middle one hit close to a 2% click through rate, which for a static ad on Meta is freaking fantastic. I think, I mean, we'd started off with what was the initial click through rate on
It's like
that
point
stuff?
three,
Like
point six.
0.37 or 0.67. I mean, that's like quadrupling the engagement rate of the ad based on the creative. So, and I mean, if you just kind of look at this, it's sort of obvious, right? That this is so much better and communicates like what the product is doing for the customer much better than this you know characters pointing at like calendar icons,
Yeah, and there's so
right?
much more
So,
you could even do. I mean, they didn't have as much of a budget to really produce their own creative. So like if they
mhm.
actually shot like did their own photo shoot or had a video shoot kind of explaining or
Yep,
showing and it was branded and felt a little bit more seamless and less stocky, I guess, quote unquote. I think we could have even had even better results. But this was
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
since this company is a little earlier stage, just being able to test different angles
Yep.
without breaking the bank was great. So now, you know, seeing what's working here, they could easily produce their own shoot and make creatives that are like completely catered to Dunbar. And maybe they're on the screen, it's like a photo of someone holding their phone up with the invite or something like that. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
you can
absolutely.
continue to
Yeah.
iterate on what's working. But I think with this stock, I think still is valid for testing, especially early on, what is resonating with the people that you're advertising to.
Yep, absolutely. So this is kind of what we ended up with, and this one, I mean, 1.96 click-through rate, so just under 2% click-through rate on this ad. This ended up being kind of the best performing one. So let me see if I can zoom in on it a little. Yeah, I mean, so we kind of go like thematically, it doesn't change that much, right? So you've got like the phone there explaining that it's an app. The copy and what's on the phone is explaining, hey, this is sort of like it's an event planning thing. It's the invite that anyone can text, kind of showing that value proposition. And I think the thing that really made this work is, I mean, just the expressions on like everyone's faces here. So like it's like that. Oh, everyone's together, everyone's smiling and having a good time, eating a great meal together. It just kind of takes that, oh, this is how you're going to feel sort of thing to the next level. And it just kind of pushes that feeling just a little bit more, increasing the click through rate by another 0.1% over, the previous iterations of best performing ads. I think, that's kind of what we are sort of seeing here.
Definitely,
You
and it
know,
goes back to that the customer being able to see themselves as the hero.
yes, yep, yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Look
I
at,
was able to invite all my friends on text message, and they remembered because they put it on their calendar, so they showed up, and we were able to have a good time.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, attractive people, smiling faces. I think that all contributes to like just this kind of making the customer feel good and then excited to use the product. I think that's, yeah, it's a really, really kind of interesting to see how these kind of subjective feeling things that we kind of know about the ads when we see them, how that kind of plays out in the KPIs that we measure from a performance perspective. Because I mean, I think we would just look back, like, how do you feel about this one? Like, the smiling faces, the feel good sort of thing about it, compared to the original ads, which just kind of felt flat. There was no like emotional punch to it.
A bit one
Um,
dimensional, and yeah,
absolutely,
yeah. They I feel like emotion is really what drives action. There are people that are very analytical and they make
for
decisions
sure.
based off information. There's plenty of those people. But for an ad where you have a very short amount of time to capture someone's attention and get them to go on a website to check it out, I think the emotion is where it starts. And then I think once you are able to get them to engage, you can really sell them on all the information that you want. But uh,
Totally. Yeah,
that's like
absolutely. And, I consider myself one of those kind of more dispassionate, data-driven people. But I also recognize that like most people are not me, and that most people make decisions. Or I think I even remember seeing like some psychological studies that people like really make decisions emotionally, and they kind of rationalize things afterwards, even if they claim to be kind of like, analytical or logical. So, I think this is kind of another example. We got data to, back it up that says, hey, make the customer feel good about your product or whatever it is, or the problem that you're solving. And that will result in, good performance from an engagement perspective. So yeah, I mean, that was a really fun project to work on. And I think this is just one example of how we kind of take our learnings and our process. When we work with our clients, it's not just, hey, we run ads for you and we make you money, but we also are part of this iterative process, ideally, with our clients, that we are also bringing in what is more or less market research to tell our clients, like, hey, this is why your product or service resonates with your clients. So you should lean into that more as a business. Or, we want to lean into that more as part of your core marketing message. So anyways, anything else to add, Calvin?
no, I think we covered pretty much everything, but I think in the end of the day, it's all iteration too. Like you can think
Absolutely.
something is the best ad, or you're like, this is the prettiest ad, or like, you can put so much time into making something that's visually awesome, but at the end of the day, the market does decide. and you
Yep.
just have to make decisions based on what you're seeing, based on the numbers that you're seeing. So there's like a little bit of both left and right brain that has to happen with
Oh
the
yeah. Yeah.
creative testing side of things, but that's why it's good to have a bunch of different variations and to be able to apply both ways of thinking in order to optimize and arrive at the winning ad that you want. And
Absolutely.
that's is going to
Yeah.
allow
Yeah.
your business to succeed, especially on an ad platform.
Nice. Well, I think that kind of concludes the discussion here. We appreciate everyone who's listening to the chat, and as usual, we've got the newsletter that goes out every month with more information and little useful tidbits like this. And then, of course, like, follow, subscribe on all the social medias, and we'll see everyone around. Thanks for joining.